Welcome to the WarmJuniper Knits podcast. My name is Christine, and I will be your host today. This is my inaugural attempt at podcasting, my very first one, so we'll see how this goes. I don't have a strict plan for what I want this to be, really. I just had the day off today, and I can't go and do some of the things that I would normally do on a day off because I actually hurt my back. And so I'm couch bound, and I've been sitting on a hot pad for a couple of hours. So I thought, well, I may as well make use of the time and do something that I've been meaning to do for a while, which was try and record a podcast. And I think a good way to start this out would be to talk a little bit about why I wanted to get started with podcasting. I watch a lot of knitting podcasts already. I have a tendency to put them on when I'm alone in the house, which in the mornings in particular, my husband leaves for work really early in the morning. So when I get up and I have breakfast and I'm getting ready for the day, the house is empty. It's just me and my cats, and it's nice to have people talk, feeling like you're talking to them while you're getting ready, and there's another voice in the house, and it's exciting to me to be able to see the progress of other people's work and what they're up to and how they're exploring their craft. That's something that I have enjoyed since I really found podcasting a couple of years ago. So for some of them, I've really watched for quite a while, and I thought, there are a lot of new ones that come up every day, and why can't I be one of those new ones? So I thought we'd give that a shot. To tell you, this is my thinking eye, so apparently I'm going to just keep, when I'm trying to think of what to say, I'll try not to do that. I currently live in Central Oregon, out in the high desert, so we're definitely in knitting country out here. Right now it is, I should probably tell you what day it is. It's August 11th, 2016. And the fun thing about desert life is that it's 80 degrees right now, which is not uncommon for August, and is actually a little bit on the cooler side, but in the mornings it will still be 40 degrees. The other day when we came into work, the heat had not been turned on in our building. We work in a very old building at the local community college, and they didn't turn the heat on because it's August and the forecast was for it to be 90 degrees, but it was so cold overnight that it was like 50 degrees in the office. So definitely year-round potential for knitwear, and I am starting to prep for winter and fall, which is coming along a little more quickly than I'm really ready for. So let me move along, and we'll start with works in progress, which is actually going to be a short segment this week because I just finished a lot of things, so I don't have a ton on my needles right now. The first one that I have is just a sock. This is for my husband, so he loves big squishy socks. And I've only knit him one pair before. I thought, it's really this year, I should make an effort to do that a little bit more. So let's see if the color will come through. It's really dark. That's a little closer. Anyway, so this is the Knit Picks Stroll Tonal in Raven, which I have not knit with Knit Picks Stroll before. I'm liking it so far. It's quite soft. I definitely feel the nylon content, and I needed sock yarn with nylon content because he also destroys his socks. I don't know what it is about man feet that wear through socks, but it's actually pooling a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting to see how things are striping just a little bit in the foot of the sock. And I cast on, this is actually my second attempt at this particular sock. I would have had the foot done and probably the heel turned and be on my way up the leg if I hadn't had to rip back, because this is 64 stitches, and I don't know if you can see this, quite wide. And I did mention he has large feet, so what size 13 feet? He's 6'5" and with the feet to match. So it's a large sock. this is still going to be too big for him. And I'm already considering ripping this out and putting in ribbing with the same stitch count probably, but just doing ribbing to bring it in a little bit. And I could not for the life of me figure out why it was turning out so big. My first attempt at this particular sock, I knit it on 68 stitches, which is what I usually do for him. And I had him tried it on, and I could pinch like a full inch of fabric off his foot. And he wouldn't have minded because, again, he likes like the big, woofy, kind of oversized socks, but knit socks need to have a little bit of negative ease, otherwise they were going to fall off his foot. And since I was doing these toe up, they'll have a short row heel of some kind. And I knew that that was going to just slip off his heel and he'd end up with all of this sock like at his toes. So that wasn't going to work. So I thought, all right, well, we'll rip back, started over with 64 stitches, and again, the lighting, but there is a bit of texture on this. This is Hermione's Everyday Sock, or at least the texture of Hermione's Everyday Sock on the front. Anyway, so I thought maybe a little bit of texture would bring it in. I think I just got excited, and I think I didn't want to do ribbing, which I'm regretting because now I'm going to have to rip back again because I know it's going to be too big for him. Anyway, I couldn't figure out why on earth these socks were turning out so huge, because I typically knit my socks on, I always knit the magic loop. I can knit them on DPNs, but the way I hold my yarn is kind of funny, and DPNs get tangled, so I almost exclusively knit socks on magic loop, US ones, that's 2.25 millimeter needles, and I know the stitch count for my feet, I know the stitch count for his feet, and these things were enormous. So I was looking at this yarn going, oh my gosh, is it so much larger, or why is my gauge so much looser? Because it looks nice and tight. The stitches on this do not seem enormous, but they were. And then I finally figured out, like 10 minutes ago as I was bringing my stuff together for this, I had just purchased this yarn, which I'll talk about in a second, but I also bought a new circular needle for socks. So I only had one sock needle because pretty much I'm only knitting one pair of socks at a time. And I knew that I wanted to start some others for him, and I just thought, well, it would be nice to have a spare needle. So when I ordered some Knit Picks yarn recently, I also got a needle. And right there, let's see. I don't know if this camera is going to reverse that or not, but that says 2.5 instead of 2.25. And I am almost positive that I originally ordered the 2.25 because I remember looking at the list on their website and being particular about selecting that. So I need to go back. I haven't decided if I'm going to send them back or not. The 2.5 works perfectly well. The gauge is still, it's a nice fabric. I'll just have to adjust my stitch count. I really don't want to send them back because when I ordered these to begin with, it took 8 days or so to get to my house, which after the order was processed, which I know is how Knit Picks allows you to buy things inexpensively and affordably because of the shipping deal that they have with FedEx. But it did sit in a warehouse in Hood River, which is not that far from here, for like 2 days. I could have driven there and picked it up. Doesn't matter. So I'm probably going to keep the larger needles and just make sure that when I knit with them in the future that I adjust my stitch count because my gauge is significantly larger on these. But I do like the socks. They're coming along well, except for the fact that I will probably rip them back again. But the process of it, I am enjoying. I should say, I did bring out, I don't know if it's worth bringing this out or not, but this is the first sock I knit him, so to give you an idea of what I'm up against in terms of size, this is kind of where we're at. So we've got a little ways to go. That is the only real active project I have right now. I have a couple of things that have been languishing for a while, things that I started and have fallen to the wayside because I either wasn't enjoying them or I knew that I needed to fix something on them. But the other thing that I have been working on, not super recently, but this spring, was actually a shawl, and this is the three-color cashmere shawl by Hoki Locatelli. And I got, if you're not familiar with that pattern, it's got 3 different sections of eyelet lace texture and then a big chunk of contrasting yarn. So you work with 3 colors and you go through different sections as this big crescent-shaped shawl. I had started this while I was on vacation with my mother to visit my grandparents, and I didn't have anything to do, so I knit. And that was in May. It's now August, so I haven't made a whole lot of progress on this. Right now it's right here, which it is a little squished because this is a shorter needle. This is a, let's see, I think this is a 24-inch needle. These are Hiya Sharps, 5-inch, by the way. Interchangeable set, so you can remove the tips. And they've got the swivel join, which is super cool. This is the only interchangeable set I have. And I will say, if you are in the market for them, they're fantastic needles. They're really lightweight. The sharps are quite pointy. So if you are a pusher, if you knit and push your stitches down, it might make your fingers kind of sore. But they're just great for manipulating stitches. I really enjoy them. And they are steel. They're not nickel, and they're not nickel plated, which is great for if you're like me and you have a nickel allergy. These and the Chagus are both steel. Addies are too. I don't own any Addies. I don't like the smell of them, but if that is a concern of yours, this is my endorsement for Hiya. That's all I've really used. This is where I am on my shawl. I have just about finished with the first section, which is just eyelet. And you can see it's this alternating eyelet. And this is yarn that I got from Tuesday Morning. There is a Tuesday Morning in our town, and frequently they will have big bins full of bargain yarn. So usually things that have been overstock, or they didn't sell in a local yarn store, or they're from, a lot of it's really obscure stuff. They get a lot of like European made yarns in there, and it's really a toss-up what you're going to get when you go in. But I usually, if I'm over there on that side of town, it's in a little shopping center. If I'm over there, I'll stick my head in just to see what they've got, because you can occasionally really score. Like, I got this yarn, which was retail $8 a skein for $2.50. And what it is Wisdom Yarns Sakai Bamboo Solids. It's 50% merino superwash, 25% nylon, and 25% rayon made from bamboo. So I thought, well, we'll give it a shot. 210 meters, 230 yards, and 50 grams, 1.75 ounces, and it is machine washable. So I thought, well, sure, cool, we'll give it a shot. So I've got it in what is kind of a, I thought this, when I purchased it, I thought it was really yellow, and it's kind of coming across yellow, more yellowy than it is on the camera. In person, it's my cat. In person, it's a little bit more green. Not quite lime. I guess it would be more like a chartreuse, would be along the color. And the contrast color was just a charcoal. And I have a couple of skeins of each. And I am not convinced that I'm going to keep going with this, because I thought these two together would be a nice... Yep. Excuse me. My cat's eating my plants. I don't know how they found them up there. This plant has lived on the bookshelf for 3 years, and they just now discovered it while I'm recording. Anyway, so I have these two contrast. I'm not totally sold, because I was going to use as the third color as the third big contrast chunk for this out of this, this is Greenwood Fiberworks, which I believe is based in Colorado, Utah. I got this at a the Oregon Flock and Fiber Festival, which is every September, actually in my hometown because the fairgrounds are in the town that I grew up, which is pretty fun. But anyway, so this has blips of that charcoal and kind of that's pretty color accurate, kind of the same idea of the green. They both look nice next to it. However, I am not super duper sold on this. Plus, this is 100% superwash merino, and it's a thicker ply, I think. I mean, the actual, weight of the yarn is probably pretty similar, but you can really see the plies are more substantial in this, so it looks different. It feels pretty different, and I'm just not feeling it so much. I think if I was going to do this, if I was going to make the effort to go through and make this what is like a 1,100 yard shawl, which is quite large. It's a lot for me who knits a lot of hats and lots of socks, that I really want to love it, and I don't love this. The project bag for this, since I mentioned it, is actually one that my mother made me. And it's just a nice big drawstring. I mean, it's got the pretty contrast fabric in there. You can kind of see it's pretty big. That shawl is like got tons of room, and compared to my other drawstring bags, this is one that I made just for myself. This is like the only thing I can sew. I'm not a seamstress by any stretch of the imagination. Get down! Stop! Hey, Mowgli! Sorry. So those are the only things that have been worked on in any kind of recent, at all recently. Like I said, I just finished a bunch of stuff. Not a ton that I'm actively working on right now. But one that I have brought out of hibernation that I intend to really start working on again is a sweater. And there's another drawstring bag. My grandmother made me this one. And it is also humongous, and it's hilarious, I think, because when you squinch it up, it becomes like a mushroom. It just cracks me up. So this is the beginnings of Ease by Alicia Plummer. And I've actually knit a considerable amount on this. Let's see if I can get this a little bit more color accurate. That's closer. It's kind of a turquoise. This was Stonehenge Fiber Mill worsted, which is not a superwash yarn. It's just, I believe merino. I don't have the labels anymore for it because I bought this from a D-stash, a local D-stash, and it used to be really, really bright blue. But it was a sweaters quantity for a really affordable price, and the sweetest lady who was de-stashing a ton of stuff. So I bought it, and then I took it and I over-dyed it with a dark green, and what I got was something that kind of looks, yeah, you can see the variation in there. There was not that variation before I over-dyed it. Again, you can bring that in. You can kind of see that it's a little lighter than this, than it's showing up. But you can see that it's kind of now a dark turquoise, which I really like, and is typically a decent color on me. So anyway, I started this ages ago and knit all of this in like a week, just picking it up. I mean, it's worsted weight on, this is US 8s. These are also my highs. And I had gotten far enough that I had started to do the decreases along the side. And here was where I got myself into trouble because I thought I was smarter than the designer. Guess what, Christine? You're not. Because it wants you to start decreasing fairly soon. And I was trying this thing on going, if I start decreasing, I'm going to have no room in the bust. I don't have much in the bust to begin with, which should have been my first clue. But also just the way that I think it comes off the raglan increases. You do start at the top and then join, and then it's a raglan with shaping. Basically, it's an oversized raglan. Anyway, I had gotten to that point, and it is supposed to be oversized, and I did want some ease in it. The whole point of the sweater is shaped with ease. But I thought, well, I'll just keep going, and I'll start my decreases after my bust. and that was a poor decision because now it's huge. And if I were to try this on, which I have done when I realized that I had overshot the mark quite a bit, and I ended up with like 6 or 7 inches of these, and you're only supposed to have like 3, partly because yeah, I thought I was smarter than what I was doing. I thought I was reading my knitting better. I really would like to have it to wear this winter, so I think I'm just going to rip back to before the decreases, because if it's fine in the shoulder and it's got this kind of drop neckline, that's fine. So I just need to take out like, I don't know, 5 inches or so back to where the decreases should start and reknit. So that is coming up because, again, fall is coming, and I would like to be able to wear that this winter. So I have mentioned a couple of times that I have finished some things recently, and what I was really doing was both stash busting and also finishing some stuff that I had not necessarily in progress, but that I had intended to be in progress for a while. I don't typically buy a lot in advance, and my stash is not huge because it makes me a little anxious when I've got a ton of stuff that's like, you should be knitting me. You bought this 2 years ago. Why haven't you started me yet? And it just sits there and it goads me. And it makes me uncomfortable. So I was like finishing up some stuff in there that was really, had been there long enough and needed to become something. My finished objects are a couple pairs of socks. Here are some. These are Mustache yarns. So Stacy from Mustache. This is hers. I believe this is the Power Sock Base, and actually these came from a twin set of 50-gram hanks that were originally intended to be part of a Stitch Surfer cowl. She was selling a bunch of these in, at the time, colorways for the movie Frozen. So this is the Anna and Elsa Stitch Surfer set, and I purchased these never with the intention of knitting Stitch Surfers. Didn't appeal to me, but I do like fraternal socks. I think it's fun when your socks don't match. So I thought, well, you know, I can always just knit one sock from one hank and one sock from the other, and I'll have 2, and it's exactly what I did. These are 56 stitches around, with them cuffed down, regular heel flap, really short feet because I have tiny feet. Yeah, Kitchener toe, pretty standard vanilla sock, didn't use patterns, just came out of my head, and I'm super, super pleased to have them finished because I love knit socks. I don't wear them a ton outside of my house because for the most part, if I'm out of my house, I'm at work, or, you know, I'm in sandals or something, so, it's Central Oregon, it gets cold, so knit socks in the evenings are the way to go. So that's another pair. As I throw them down. Also from the Stitch Surfer kit, these were the same, at the same time I bought the Anna and Elsa colorway, and I also bought Olaf, I think it's called Happy Snowman. The current runs of these colorways are very slightly different. I think the striping sequence is a little bit different now than it was originally for these kits, but you can still buy Happy Snowman in her shop. But I also have a longer pair like that, but because I have such small feet, I had enough left over to make a pair of ankle socks. So this is the Happy Snowman that I was talking about, and it's quite a bit brighter than it's showing up. Yeah. Judy's Magic cast on for the toe and increased to 56 stitches, knit up. This is a Fish Lips Kiss Heel. I just taught myself this, or I bought the pattern and I followed the pattern. And I really like it. I know that the Fish Lips Kiss is super duper popular with podcasters. You hear about it all the time, which is really how I had heard about it. Although I've had the pattern sitting in my library forever, and I was a little bit intimidated because it is a huge pattern. There's like 16 pages of description on how to trace your foot, and figure out where your hinge line is and all those things, which I did not do at all. I just got to the point where I would normally need to put my heel in, and then I followed the heel directions. Don't do it, cat. Don't do it. No. He's not going to listen to me. Popped in the heel. It's fabulous. The thing that I love most about it really is that there is no hole there. As you can see, it's just super seamless. On this side too, you can kind of see there's nothing there. It just goes right in, which is something that I always have trouble with. And I know that you can pick up extra stitches when you start working the round again from like a flapping gusset or even from any other kind of short row heel, but it just always had a gap there, which didn't bother me too much, but this is super, super duper easy to do. And it fits really well. It feels secure on my foot, which is another thing that I wasn't always hugely pleased with other short row heel socks that I've made. They tend to slide down. These ones don't. They stay up really nicely. Yeah, so if the Fish Lips Kiss heel has intrigued you, I would encourage you to pay the $1 and take a look, because it does look nice, and it's really easy to work up. I have it memorized now that I've knit. So yeah, so that's my other finished object. Ta-da! More socks. I also just recently finished a baby blanket. My friends are all having babies, so I have been doing lots of baby knitting. I have my eye on you. I don't know if you can see. There's one kitty ear where he's sitting on the table. My friends have been having babies, and I have been knitting baby blankets. My thought is that I will try to knit a blanket for every baby with this group. There's 5 of us, and there are currently 3 and another on the way. So I just finished one, which was 4 months overdue. The baby is 4 months old now, and I did not get it to his mama on time because I was really sick when she was pregnant and didn't really knit anything. Don't. So it's a little bit late, but another is having her second. So I have, I'm going to drop in a picture of Theo's blanket here. And so you can kind of see, this is just, I think this is Knit Picks Comfy Worsted. It's their cotton acrylic blend, which I thought was super great for a baby blanket. It does knit up really nicely. I will say when I popped it in the washer, it fuzzed up quite a bit, which I was expecting, and I think happened mostly because I had not woven in the ends and trimmed them before I ran it through the wash, so the ends frayed and got fuzz all over everything. But I ran it over it with a lint roller, and I do have a sweater shaver, and I just gave it a few quick passes, and that really cleaned it up, so I'm not complaining about that. And I'm 90% sure that the fuzz was my fault for not weaving in the ends before I sent it through the wash. But it's very, very soft. It's easy on the hands, which I know cotton can be quite difficult, but the acrylic content in that gives it enough give that it really didn't bother me at all. So that is another finished object that was very recent. I wanted to include on here because it might be a while before I have more finished objects, considering my needle adjacent projects include another blanket, which is a good segue here to talk about some acquisitions and needle adjacent projects. So I have a couple things that will be cast on next once I finish those. Needle adjacent acquisitions that have to do with babies. That's where we were. So also a Tuesday morning find were these 3. I have 3 skeins of each color. So this is going to be the next baby blanket that I make. This is another, where is this from? Yeah, this is another foreign yarn, I guess. Well, it's made in Turkey. I don't know if you call it foreign. I have no idea where it retails around here, but it showed up in Tuesday morning. It is, again, 1.75 ounces, 50 grams, 50% merino wool, 25% bamboo, and 25% polyamide. I don't really know what polyamide is. Some kind of acrylic. Either way, it's wool bamboo, which means it will be good for babies because it's superwash. Yeah, machine washable, but I know some people have that it can be kind of controversial, I suppose, about what you make baby things out of, because on one side there's like it needs to be a natural fiber because it's really dangerous to have your babies in garments that might melt if they were ever in a fire or too near a heat source, which would be terrible. Acrylic won't really burn, but it will melt and it'll be terrible because it's plastic. And then there's also you really should be making your baby things out of stuff that can go in the wash. It needs to be acrylic, or it needs to be cotton, or it needs to be really easy care, because no new mom wants to be hand washing garments. I don't have a particularly strong opinion on that. I have knit baby things out of 100% acrylic. I've knit them out of cotton blends. Like I said, I've given 100% wool superwash, also non-superwash, and no one has the mothers have not had an opinion about that either. I suppose if they expressed, because they all know that I'm making these things for them, if they were particular about a kind of material, I think they would tell me. But this will be nice because it's a little bit of both. It's easy care and it's wool, and I think the colors are really nice. And it feels soft in the hand. I don't really know what it works up like yet. This says that, let's see, it's 173 yards. So it says that it's about a worsted weight. It's a little light for a worsted, I think, but I think this will make a nice color block blanket. And since we don't know what flavor the babies are yet, it's pretty gender neutral as well. Also coming up, and also for a baby, at least I think so, is this. This is Malabrigo Arroyo in Piedras. So it's their sport weight hand paint. As you can see, Variegated. This one leans really green. It looks a little redder than that in the frame, but it's a little bit greener. I have had this yarn in my stash forever. It has been my white whale because I cannot find a project that this yarn really works for or that I like it in. It has been a pair of fingerless mitts. It's been a pair of like flip top mittens. It's been a cowl, and I get halfway through knitting them and I'm like, I don't like this. And at this point, I just want it out of my stash. and I think what this is going to be is a baby surprise jacket. I've got just enough for just enough for the newborn size of baby surprise, which will be good because this baby is due in January. This baby will live in Texas, so they won't get like super tons of use out of like really heavy woolly knitwear, but even in January, a nice little cardigan kind of jacket I think will do well. And I have seen, if you go onto Ravelry and you look at the suggested projects for a particular kind of yarn, lots of people have knit a BSJ out of Malabrigo Arroyo. So I'm thinking that will be successful and it will look nice. And again, it's pretty gender neutral. So we are going to do this a little bit differently, and I'm going to hold on to the cat instead of letting him ravage my houseplants. So I was just saying, this is going to be a baby surprise jacket. I'm pretty sure I have enough. If I don't, I've got some plain cream Cascade Sport as well, so I can, make some stripes or put it on the cuffs or whatever, it'll work out. All right, so that's my needle adjacent projects. Baby blanket, baby jacket. I have a couple of acquisitions, which is kind of unusual for me. I don't tend to buy a lot of yarn. I do tend to buy like my yarn for the year, that's really misleading. I don't buy yarn usually unless I have a project in mind for it. So I typically pick 3 or 4 things that I know that I really want to knit, and then I'll go in and buy my yarn for those projects at the Flock and Fiber Festival. If I pick up things throughout the rest of the year, which does happen, absolutely, but it tends to be either very project specific, so things like this. When I saw this, I was in there looking for baby blanket yarn, stuff like that. But when I'm knitting for me, I'll just pick it up there. So to order things online is kind of unusual. So the fact that I've got like actual acquisitions this week is different. But what they are, here we go. So I mentioned earlier that I did buy some things from Knit Picks. That Raven, that was my husband's socks. That's new as of this week. And I also got this, which is the same base. So Stroll Tonal Knit Picks. There you go. And this one is in the cucumber. My God. I did what I should have done ages ago and put them in my bedroom. Apparently that's going to be a thing. Usually they're really friendly and total lap hogs and leave my plants alone, but not today, apparently. So yes, this is Knit Picks Stroll Tonal. That's pretty darn color accurate. This is in cucumber. I think it will be a pair of socks for me. Possibly part of the Hoki shawl that I'm considering ripping out. I think if I am going to knit that again, that this will look really nicely with my intended contrast yarn. It's a nice, same kind of tones, even though this is a lot darker. It's the same, I'm going to say palette. I don't know, they look nice together. So I might use this for that. I haven't really decided yet. There's that. Also purchased relatively recently was this. This is Koigu, their KPPM Painter's Palette Premium Merino, and this is P105D. So this is at another local shop. It's not in Bend, it's actually in Sisters, which if you're familiar at all with Sisters, Oregon, it's probably because they have a gigantic, huge international quilt festival there every year in July. They do have a shop that is primarily quilt and fabric supply store, but they do have some knitting things as well, and they got this. I bought this to go. Again, the Hoki shawl, thinking that it would be a better contrast than the Greenwood Fiberworks that I had planned on doing that with, which maybe it would have been a lot different. It would be a lot more subtle, a lot less subtle, excuse me, than like that green that I just had. This would be a lot more crayon-y color, I think. It's pretty saturated and bright, which I like. I like colorful things, but I did not read the pattern before I went in, or I did not refresh myself on the pattern before I went in and looking for this. And this is 50 grams. I would need at least 2, possibly 3 total, 2 more of these. And this was the only one in that colorway that they had. And then I was gone for a week. And after I realized this, and I ran out of time to return it, so now I have a 50-gram skein, which, as I know, is just enough to make myself a pair of short socks. So that's probably what this will be. If not, it might become a baby hat. Let's see. So those are some relatively recent things that were all purchased like in the last month. So the only other fibery thing that I have to show, I do spin on my wheel, which is an Ashford Traveler. So it's one of them, you knit on it, or you spin on it with it facing you parallel, and it's single treadle. I could bring it over here. This is my spinning Jenny. That's what I call her. So what's on here right now is huckleberry fiber. It's a merino bamboo silk blend, and it's, there you go, you can kind of see there's some greens. I've just been moving into a teal section. There's a lot of really saturated purple under there. Okay, but anyway, what I have finished up reasonably recently, this is some Polworth. I got this at the Oregon Flock and Fiber Festival, surprise. And I have 2 bobbins that are about the same size of this. I did a sample ply, a 2-ply of it. I suck at plying. I do, which is why I don't make as much progress on my spinning projects as I probably could, because I can spin up a 4-ounce bobbin pretty quickly. And I spin reasonably fine. This would probably be around, well, it was around a fingering weight as a 2-ply, but it was really stringy. I don't ply very well. and I'm a little afraid to ruin it, so I haven't tried to apply it since. But I think what I'm going to do is pull out a couple of, what do you call those things, cardboard tubes from, like old, the toilet paper tubes, and measure out or weigh out it into thirds, and then try a traditional 3-ply, because I don't want to chain ply it because it's not so consistent across the bobbins. My spinning is irregular enough that you could really tell the difference between the beginning of a bobbin and the end of it. We do have a local spinning guild here, Northwest Spinners Guild in WSG, and they meet once a month, and I typically take my wheel and go spinning with them. I do also have a couple of drop spindles, which I enjoy. Jenny is really, really lightweight, and she fits in my car, so she's easy to take to the spinning guild meetings once a month, and that is when I get the majority of my spinning done. So maybe this month I will take these in and beg one of the more experienced spinners to show me how to ply more successfully. So that is all of the content that I have for today. I think you've seen pretty much everything that I've touched in the last 4 months, or am planning to. I think that this podcast will probably be a bi-weekly thing. The only other thing that I really wanted to possibly pose to anyone who might actually watch this, which I don't know if anyone will, it might just be my mother, is the idea of having creative energy and how you persist with keeping up with your different kinds of projects. And we're all often involved in more than one thing. So, we have families, we have work, but outside of those things, we have more than typically just knitting or spinning that is interesting to us or takes up our time. I know for myself, if I'm knitting a lot, then that's taking up my free time in the evening, and I am not someone who can read and knit at the same time. I know that if I am knitting a lot, then I'm not reading, which I also really enjoy. And if I'm reading, then I am probably not exercising as much as I would like to. I run long distance, and I do taekwondo as well. So for me, expending energy in one creative pursuit tends to result in a deficit somewhere else. And that's difficult for me because I think all of those things bring us balance. I know that I feel calmer, and I feel more centered when I've exercised regularly. I know that I feel accomplished and purposeful when I knit. Spinning is very zen. I'm expanding my mind, and when I'm reading, I'm learning things. When I'm writing, I'm being creative in a totally different way. But I'm not great about having good balance in those things. I tend to really, really dive into one for a couple of weeks at a time, and then drop it, and then come back to it 6 months later and be like, well, where did all this energy that I had go? Where was the drive that I had when I really started this short story, which I left in the middle of a paragraph? Where was I going with this? I don't even remember. I don't have the passion for it that I did at that time. And part of it, some of that is just, follow your bliss. Do what inspires you when it inspires you, and try not to worry too much about those other things. And then there's the other part of me that thinks, well, if I was a bit more mindful about the way that I was spending my time creatively, then I would be able to maintain those more consistently, more regularly. So part of this purpose of this podcast is to give me something to be a little bit accountable to in my knitting and spinning, but to have somewhere to share it, have an outlet with people who may or may not be watching this, but something for me to, if I know that I intend to film this once every 2 weeks, then I should have something to show you, so I should be making an effort to work on that. That's just a thought of mine and part of the impetus for this new pursuit. But yeah, that's kind of where I think I will leave this today. Go forward in your day in peace.